Going too early.
Yeah.
Okay, it should be spinning up on YouTube now, and we're going to let the people come in right now. So
Perfect.
have fun.
Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you, Gavin.
All right, TCC committee, we are officially online and we are streaming on YouTube and probably Facebook sites. We also have our interpreters online, and we're going to officially kick off the quarterly meeting. Thank you all for making time this evening. It is officially 6:04, and we're also allowing the public in simultaneously. So we're going to go ahead and kick off the meeting. I will officially turn it over to Courtney to begin the agenda for the day. Go ahead, Courtney. It's all yours.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. So before we get started, I wanted to point out to our wonderful translators, we do have simultaneous translation, and I will allow the interpreters to explain how to use that function and Hmong.
Hola, muy buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a la junta del día de hoy. El día de hoy vamos a tener interpretación simultánea disponible en español y en Hmong. Para accesar la interpretación en español, favor de seleccionar el icono cuando prendamos la interpretación que parece un mundo. Después de que seleccionen el icono, van a seleccionar su lenguaje de preferencia. En esta ocasión sería español. Les recomiendo que para que solamente escuchen en español, pongan el audio original en silencio y de esa manera van a poder escuchar en tiempo real. Bienvenidos.
nhớ trong 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 này tôi có bên nó nó hàng nó bên mua ôi ya lu hong thế lu mẹ là xài xài là bên nó như thế sao một trong lu hong chế này mua nhẹ cho lu lồng như sao họ chế này mua xài này lu này xài rồi chỉ thằng này xài tao này lu chế như này xài lu hong chế mua nhẹ lu hong như này xài lu mẹ chế nhẹ lu mẹ chế như này xài cái tao bên xài lu hong là này chế mua cho lu hong là bên mà xài là này nè ở trong.
Thank you very much. We also have our ASL interpreter on the screen for those of you that need that service too. So like Councilman Arias said, thank you all for joining us tonight at this Transform Fresno Outreach and Oversight Community Meeting. My name is Courtney Espinoza, and I'm the Program Implementation Manager for Transform Fresno. I hope everyone had a chance to visit the Transform Fresno website and view project updates for each of the projects prior to the meeting. If you have not done so, please take a moment to do that after the meeting or at your leisure. So on Monday, we will be moving those project update presentations to their respective pages so you can search each of those project pages for that information specifically. Now I'd like to take this opportunity to update everyone on some exciting things that are happening. Our first Annual Transform Fresno Summit will be held on March 25th, 2021. This will be a virtual conference on topics that relate to Transform Fresno and its projects. We will be having sessions throughout the day on various topics such as active transportation, urban greening, solar in the time of COVID, information on Chinatown's history, and youth leadership development, along with sessions for business development and first-time homebuyers. Informational mailers will be sent out to residents and businesses in the Transform Fresno project area, along with their email notifications on how and where to register for this event. And you'll be able to attend one or all of these sessions throughout the day, and they will be recorded and posted on the website once the summit is over. Mayor Dyer and SGC Executive Director Louise Bedsworth will be speaking at the opening session starting at 9 a.m. that morning. We hope you can all, it's going to be a great event. We are also in the final stages of our displacement avoidance plan report and policy recommendations. Thrive-Ins Group and Dr. Destiny Thomas, our consultant, has been working hard on this project for a little over a year now and recently gave a presentation to the Anti-Displacement Task Force and the Fresno City Council. I received the draft report yesterday, and we are currently working on translation of the report into Spanish and Hmong. Once the report is translated and finalized, it will be released to the public for a 45-day comment period. That report will be posted on the Transform Fresno website and the City of Fresno's website as well. Instructions on how to submit your comments will also be posted along with the report. So please make sure you are signed up for the Transform Fresno newsletter to get the latest updates and be notified once that report is published, so you can take a look at that and give us your feedback. So tonight we'll be taking a deep dive into 3 Transform Fresno projects to learn more about the projects and their progress. So with that, I will turn it over to Michael Duarte from the Fresno Housing Authority for project number 1, the Monarch at Chinatown.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Duarte. I'm the Chief Real Estate Officer at the Fresno Housing Authority. And I'm going to try to share my screen to show a few slides. Give me 1 second, please. Courtney, do you have to grant permission for that?
You have permission. Everybody has permission as far as panelists go.
Yes.
I am having trouble doing that. Sorry about that.
Do you want to send your presentation to Courtney and we'll run it?
I already have it. I'm pulling it up right now.
Awesome, thank you. So as she's pulling that up, my presentation today should be brief. I have a couple of images that I want to share with you about in terms of what the look and feel of the property, as well as a summary of the unit mix and a couple highlights on the timeline.
Can everybody see the screen? Is this the right one?
It is, thank you. So we can run through these pretty quick, Courtney, especially the first 8 or 9 slides. We can go pretty quick. The first slide just is the context of where the property is located within the downtown area. So it is in Chinatown. Next slide, please. And the location is on the corner of Fresno and Mariposa Street, 2 blocks over from the planned high-speed rail station entry point on the Chinatown side. So we're excited about that. The next couple slides are images from the street view. This is looking towards downtown Fresno along Mariposa. And those are lofts along that side of the property. The next slide is a view looking at the corner, and on the kind of heading to the right there is F Street with commercial, about 4,000 square feet of commercial, and then the units above. The next slide, this shows the site plan for the ground floor, if you will. So the yellowish, kind of towards the bottom right-hand corner here, those are the 5 lofts that we have at the ground floor level. And those are units that have, if you're familiar with those, they have a little loft bedroom up on top because it is a tall first floor. The pink area there is the main lobby and office stairway elevator area. And the bluish color there is the commercial. You also see on the ground floor with entry along Fagan Alley is the parking area. And the next slide shows the sort of the second layer, if you will. And you'll see where the units are there. And again, the pink area is commercial community space. So computers, hangout areas, those types of spaces that residents can benefit from. And then on top, sort of on top of where the parking area is a second floor, kind of an outdoor space where folks can sit down and really enjoy the outside. And the next slide kind of gives you hopefully an a view of what it's going to look like in greater detail. Awesome. The next couple slides give you perspectives of that common space, which is on the second floor. Great. So just an overall summary of the program. We have 57 units total, with just over 4,000 square feet of commercial space, and also the community space that I mentioned earlier. On the next slide, I just have a summary of the project timeline. So this, the project was officially awarded TCC funding back in January. We did work with the city to work out details of the sub-agreement for the funding in October. And then we pursued the last piece of financing, which is the 4% tax credits in January. We started construction in August of 2020. Next slide, please. All right, so just a couple of highlights, since one of the goals, one of the many goals, was to provide resiliency for climate change, right? So we made a focus to include solar that will offset 100% of the utilities there. So the residents will benefit from not having any utility bills. All of the systems are powered by electricity, so there's no gas for cooking or heating. And again, all utilities will be offset. As part of the program and promote alternative transportation modes, as part of the project budget, we've incorporated free bus passes for up to 2 years for all residents, as well as incorporating electric vehicle charging stations on site, of course, drought-tolerant landscaping, and also to promote alternative modes of transportation. We have bike storage lockers for the residents. The next slide, just a summary of, as I mentioned earlier, we closed on the financing and started construction in August 2020. So we did have a virtual groundbreaking, and there is a link there. I believe Courtney will make this information available on the TCC website. So if you'd like to go back and review that groundbreaking event, you can certainly do that following this link. And an important component of this Chinatown project is we were really looking and working with folks from the Chinatown community to make a bigger impact than just simply this project. And certainly it will be covered as part of the TCC presentation at a future time. But the project also is complemented by street improvements, as well as or some urban greening. So as part of the project, throughout the Chinatown neighborhood, there will be street lighting. They'll be added to promote walkability, as well as some tree plantings, sidewalk repairs to promote walking, as well as improvements to China Alley, which include pavement and additional lighting in the area. Next slide, Courtney. Yep, so those are some of the complementary improvements happening in Chinatown. Next slide, please. And as part of the next steps, we'll continue to find opportunities to get community input and feedback on that. We've gone through a process where we've gotten input on art that's going to be incorporated into the project, so we've appreciated that feedback, as well as feedback from many community members, including Morgan, who is on this group, about the naming of the property. So he really challenged us on the name, and I think it resulted in what I think is a great name in the Monarch at Chinatown. We expect at this point construction to be completed in August of 2022, with lease-up activity starting as soon as May of 2022. And I'm providing the website that we have for the project. So if anybody in the community is interested on understanding the timeline or what's going on at Chinatown, and importantly, we'll provide, in addition to other outlets through the Housing Authority website and other advertising, we will also provide lease-up information or applications at this website, which is themonarch@chinatown.com. And my last slide is a recent photo. There is activity in construction happening out there. This is probably a couple weeks old now, but you as you can see, the foundation is going in, and very soon we'll start to see it going vertical. So that's really where we'll see the impact. But that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions now or later, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the public? Let me go to the public first, and then we'll go to the community, the panel members. I see we have about 32 public attendees. Anyone wishing to have any questions to the Housing Authority on the Monarch project? I see Grecia, you're up first.
Hi, thank you for that great presentation. Michael, I have a simple question. Just wondering, as far as getting your tenants in the building, how is there a way, like, we work directly with community members, is there a way that we would be able to direct them to an application, or how would they be able to potentially, if they're interested, to apply to live in that housing project?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically we'll advertise, we'll have a billboard with the phone number at the property. We'll advertise on our website, and as well as the Monarch at Chinatown.com. We'll have advertisements there on lease up information. I believe we're trying to get a link there to allow folks to click and submit applications, or they can print the application and deliver that to us. And I'll also work with Courtney to make sure that she distributes information to this group, as well as any other folks that are plugged into TCC. And the process is typically we have an interest list that's formed, so everybody within the application window will have the equal opportunity to live there. So we'll accept applications during a certain window of time, and we'll take that list and we'll sort it randomly. And we'll start, calling off that list. And so everybody, regardless if they apply the first day or the last day, will have an equal opportunity to apply and live at this property.
Michael, to Grecia's question, I know we have a dislocation plan, and our goal is not to dislocate people from the neighborhood as these revitalization efforts begin. Is there any reason why you can't prioritize Chinatown residents or residents in that zip code or census tract when you open up your application pool?
Miguel, that's probably something we can look into. I'd have to consult with others, including our attorneys, to make sure that we're providing fair housing opportunities. But certainly we would like to, if there's a way to prioritize folks that live in the area.
Perfect, thank you. All right, the next question we have is from Laura. Laura, you're unmuted.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much for your presentation, Michael. And thank you for this great project and spearheading this innovative approach towards electrification and Z&E building. You guys really put something great together. I was wondering if sometimes throughout the project you would have had considered any third-party green building verification methods, or if there's anything planned for this project. Thank you.
Yeah, as part of our financing, particularly the tax credit program, we do have to meet certain energy goals. And I believe, I think it's this certification, I believe, is under the Build It Green, if I remember correctly, as the third party, standards that we're trying to satisfy, as well as I believe we're exceeding Title 24 well above 10% as well as a goal. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but we do have third-party certifications in that manner.
All right, seeing no other questions from the public, we'll come back to the panel members. I see Ms. Curry, your first hand is up. So if you can unmute yourself, you will have the floor.
Okay, I just would like to know, will there be some facilities for recreational uses for young people? And if so, what kind?
Sure, that it is. The property is pretty high density, so we are utilizing the entire footprint of the property, and that's really on the second floor. I don't know if you had the opportunity to look at that slide where it shows the deck on the second floor, and that's an area that we're trying to make conducive, where kids can go outside and enjoy the outside, as well as have some sort of play equipment, possibly. And also in terms of technology, we provide free Wi-Fi in the community center where kids can go find a quiet place to either read, do homework, or I'm not a big fan of computer labs anymore. I'd rather have a coffee shop style atmosphere, and they could bring their devices, or often we have some on site that residents can check out and use. And so we're really trying to promote those types of spaces. Thank you, Courtney, for bringing this up. But this is the space we have planned on the second floor.
Thank you.
Any other members of the panel wishing to ask questions? All right, seeing none, I think we're ready to move on to the next presentation.
Councilman, there was actually one person in the chat that had a question about the fire station. So it said, Michael, remind us the timeline on moving fire department training building. Also, the fire station will continue to stay there. So I can answer that question. The fire department and the fire station will stay there, but they will no longer be burning in that tower. So we took out the live burns altogether, and they will be burning and training other places, to answer that question.
And to go a little further, the city is working with State Center Community College that's also building a fire, police, and paramedics college campus in Southeast Fresno. So we're all trying to work out the best location for a new fire burn tower that is needed in the area, that works for both training future firefighters and current firefighters.
Yes, thank you. So thank you all. Thank you, Michael, for your presentation. That was great. So now let's move on to an update from our leadership development program and the partnership between Youth Leadership Institute and Fresno EOC. Sher Mua and Cato Prado are here to discuss that. You guys go ahead and have the floor.
Thank you. Now I'm nervous about screen sharing after Michael. But let me see how this goes. So I'm going to click present. If I share it this way, is it very tiny for you all?
There you go. I think that's a better option there. Perfect.
There we go. Okay, thanks for that moment of patience. And y'all have to forgive me for the wordiness. We've been operating completely virtually, so we don't have cute photos yet. I'm hoping with the increased safety and health of our city, we'll be in person soon. As well as the fact that my name is Cato. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I'm one of the coordinators for the Transform Fresno Youth Leadership Development Program. And we're a little bit different from the other projects, as we're one of the community engagement projects. And we're engaging young people to become a leadership pipeline for TCC. So this year has looked super funky, as I'm sure all of you are a little tired of hearing maybe, that the pandemic has completely changed all of our plans. But we wanted to stick to our typical standards of practice when it comes to developing these young leaders and to really take care of the foundational, safety and relationship building when it comes to kind of building something from scratch. We wanted to make sure that in designing and developing a curriculum that would cover a pretty broad range of topics, that it would be coming from a place that was youth-led, so that there was actual buy-in from the young people participating. So from the get-go, we were recruiting young people that live in or attend school in the project area to design the curriculum. And out of that process, that was done completely virtually, not the original plan, but what needed to be done for safety. Some primary curriculum topics that came out of that as their priorities were obviously environmental justice, right? Most of them don't have the opportunity to learn about that in their school setting. Obviously the history of TCC in Southwest Fresno, wellness and advocacy. It's come up in a lot of our conversations that these young people enter in with a ton of energy, a ton of joy, a ton of passion, but the burnout is real. And because a lot of the time they're not compensated or taken care of when they enter these spaces, the burnout is real. So just wellness and advocacy is a big point that they want to bring up. And then of course the leadership fundamentals that they need to understand the kind of intricacies of the budgets that are involved in such a historic process like TCC, being able to speak publicly. So we have some folks that are in the space in the cohort that are super confident speaking in a room full of people. And we had some people when they applied tell us, I'm pretty nervous to speak in front of people. So some of those leadership fundamentals were things that they named as curriculum pieces that are important to them. Oof. Oof. Next, there we go. Another priority that came up as we chugged along this year so far has been in providing additional resources to the table for the youth. So one of those things happened to be, creatively bridging this digital divide that we've seen as we've had to be, programming during the pandemic. We've tapped into some pre-existing funding streams, both EOC and YLI, to provide tablets or laptops, kind of depending on need for youth, as well as for a couple of youth, like a hotspot, just making sure that if they wanted to participate, if there are these active participants in this process, that there's nothing getting in the way of that for them. As well as reallocating some funds within existing budgets that we had, some flexible contracts that we've already been trying to, verbs that we've already been trying to use to just really be supporting our youth as just holistic people that they come to the table as when they are trying to be leaders in the TCC projects and the other work that they do, to, meet their needs. Some of them have needs that really eclipse just I'm here working today from my laptop. It's also kind of like I need some help covering this utilities bill today, or I could really use a new set of pencil and paper today. And so just being able to support them in that way and being really flexible with how we use our time as adult allies has been a really important use of our time on both YLI and EOC's side. And then in that same vein, it's been a lot of quality over quantity in terms of recruiting and retaining these young people. We started with a group of 5 core leaders to be designing this curriculum because these are the building blocks that are going to be used for a curriculum package that's going to be delivered for the next 3 years. And we're hoping will be a curriculum that can also be reproduced and kind of packaged neat and clean for other programs that are looking to bring young people into the space, looking to break down the ideas of environmental justice, environmental racism, for other spaces that have brought TCC or TCC-like processes through their communities. So we really wanted it to be an intentional process there. So we started with that group of 5 and we knew we wanted to keep them. So knowing that our work typically centers on in-person, face-to-face connections, we really needed to have some serious care in evolving that virtually and ensuring just safety with them, right? We have young people who are zooming in from their couch in a hunched corner because they're talking about some really vulnerable topics about the way they relate to their community and their neighborhood and their safety and their sense of self navigating all this, and they don't want the rest of their family to hear. And we have some young people who don't even want to be on camera after a very long day of being on camera from school. And so just really navigating that connection has been what's allowed us to retain these really dynamic youth leaders. But it's also been more of a quality over quantity thing. And we know we'll be able to build out a really strong cohort with these leaders that'll probably return to us as intermediary leaders for future cohorts. And that's been a part of the retention we've had so far. So yeah, taking care of the youth at the table and their ideas during this time and just fostering a deeper connection with who we have has been cool. And as we look to build out the cohort further, we've recruited 2 more and we have a rolling application going on to build out the cohort to the 12 that we want to have throughout the year, employing some innovative recruitment strategies from EOC, getting some transitional age young people who are already kind of out in the community on foot, who are being able to be paid again through EOC existing contracts to and EOC Street Saints to be specific. Sorry, I know EOC is a super, super huge group. But specifically EOC Street Saints, who are already brushing shoulders with other young people to help recruit them and speak to the work that we're doing, the events that we're holding and hosting. And then we've had a lot of really cool opportunities to build relationships for the curriculum delivery that we want to have. So we have both through EOC, as well as YLI, a lot of in-house experts on certain things, but we're not the experts on everything. For some of these things like environmental justice, we've been able to foster this cool relationship with folks from the State Department of Parks, and they have a really, really cool environmental justice training and workshop series, for instance. And so building that connection has been really cool. Being able to be a part of a multi-org training for that is going to be awesome. And in the coming years, that connection is going to be really cool because when it's not a virtual training, they offer a really nice, like kind of sliding scale, almost to free, like outdoors, like in the hiking forest type of training that goes along with it. So it's kind of setting up like our future cohorts for like really, really dynamic experiences, as well as like Street Saints EOC, being able to connect with other community members to be the deliverers of that TCC context. So to really get like a really clear picture of what it's looked like to get to this point. So we got the like, okay, y'all, we got to break down the vocabulary, we got to break down the jargon, we got to know what we mean, but we also want to hear from folks who were there since day one. What does this actually look like? What does it felt to be a part of this? Because we want them to know what they're talking about. They don't want to just be talking pieces. They want to be able to speak for themselves. And so we have a really, really bright cohort, and yeah, they're super excited to present their piece on like what like youth leadership development has kind of felt like and looked like so far, and lead an activity at the summit. Yeah. And I think that's all I got. Is that my last slide? That's my last slide. Yes, it is. Sweet. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here, and sure, if you had anything to add. But yeah, thank you.
Great. We'll go to the public. Is there any questions from the public? Let me see, we can pull up some here. I see no members from the public yet, so I'm going to come back to the panel members. I see Ms. Sabrina Kelly. You have the floor.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for that informative update. I was wondering how the youth program was pivoting to be responsive to recruitment in the age of COVID that we're living in. I'm also interested to find out, you know, one of the things we talked about as we were interviewing agencies to represent youth was really looking at youth who live in the footprint, who are not ideally part of, you know, the YLI kind of youth framework. These are recruiting kids that, you know, maybe on the fringe or maybe have not participated, not the traditional youth leadership type of kid. And so I was wondering, what has been your actual recruitment strategy for reaching out to kids who live in the TCC footprint, who ordinarily wouldn't participate in leadership development programs? Because we did talk about that during the interview. And then what strategies are you doing to ensure that the participation is ethnically diverse, so that we have a mix of kids who have the leadership development opportunities, who are, you know, from all cultures in the footprint, from Hispanic to Punjabi to Southeast Asian to African American? How are you guys strategizing to make sure the youth who live in the footprint are at the table?
Sorry, I'm just typing out the questions so that I can also bring these back to our next staff meeting for those of us who aren't here, because I work with like a pretty big team. Cool. So I'll be completely honest, in this first year, to get the program off the ground in this like virtual moment where we were like pretty like, our initial plan changed and the plan after that changed and the plan after that changed. Our initial recruitment strategy was to start with just a blast email to our network of partners that we work with who have connections to young people, like across lots of different demographics in the area that work with young people that we like have no contact with, that we've never worked with before, saying that this is an upcoming program. If there's any interest, please let us know. Reaching out to other organizers, again, that like have ties to youth that we've like that we never work with or speak to. That was like our initial like kind of trying to build the plan and fly it strategy, is try to just get out to as many adult allies as we're aware of that have connections to young people that we don't, to see where the interest was. This was also at the outset like a pretty big ask. Like, we're not just recruiting to kind of like come see how you like it, kind of participation, show up type thing, but let's design a curriculum based program at first, which was kind of like a tough ask. And so we got a lot of like initial interest from folks, and then not a lot of, or there was like a big fear of like attrition from that like initial wave of recruitment. So that was also like an initial, like, I guess setback could be a word that we had. But this year, like, we haven't had a chance to like employ as broad or as many like, I guess I would say, dynamic strategies to recruit folks. In this most recent quarter, our partners at Street Saints have been able to get like transitional age young folks who are in the project area to be able to speak to their peers and go through that network, which I think is a much better way of recruiting, because I'm 24 and live just outside of, I live outside of the footprint. So I'm not the best person to be recruiting, even if I do my best. But young folks that live in the project area is one of the best ways, as well as like young folks that are involved in the program, I think, are some of the best ways. Currently, as we stand, we have a pretty diverse group. And so being able to like lean on them to speak to their peers, folks that, and I would say we have like a 50-50 split right now. 50% of the folks that are participating are folks that have been in or out of YLI programming before, in that like youth leadership kind of, sphere before, and 50% that like I've never seen, Cher's never seen, or that this is like a project that's pretty new to them. So being able to lean on them to like reach out to their peers, their networks, is something that we've also been trying to do in this first year, where outreach is just something that we have been trying to figure out as we also are trying to do it. Sure, if you had anything to add. And I also know that like Nicole is here, if she would like to add anything, because she has taken lead on this like newer outreach project.
I just want to add.
How many students do you all have participating now?
We have 7 right now.
Did I finish early?
Tiffany,
Sure, you were saying, sorry.
go ahead and continue, Tiffany. I think we just had a pause there.
I think we're done with the question, unless Cato has something else. Sandra's next.
We'll go to Sandra, and then we'll go to Ms. Curry after Sandra.
I just want to make sure Cher didn't want to add to what was being said. I thought he started.
Thank you, Sandra. I think I just want to add to Cato's point. We have a diverse table. We have a Southeast Asian, Latinx, African American youth who are represented at the table. I want to say the majority of our youth are also from the project area at this time, and so our table is. Just wanted to add that piece.
I just wanted to add that this is a great update, and we know everybody in every program in our community and nationwide has had to pivot because of COVID. So, all the challenges for that, I think, are understandable. And I wonder, given the recruitment efforts, your ongoing, I think I heard you say that there was ongoing recruitment. You said the application is open and there's ongoing recruitment. So I think this is a good reminder for the committee to maybe, get that in front of us so that we can share that with our networks to help with the application, applicants, the number of applicants that you get. So I wanted to say that out loud so we get that on the record for our next committee meeting. I also thought that maybe there are other things that maybe I didn't catch as I'm writing notes here that we can help. One thing I think I put in the comment on Facebook Live is that your environmental justice partners, if you are still looking for other partners, I think the one that you named is a great partner, but there are others in the region that certainly could be a resource to you. So we can certainly share, I can share some names. I just need to know who I should get that to. And it just made me think that maybe we should get some other things in front of the committee for the next meeting. That's it.
All right, we'll make a note of that. I do have one question from the public. We'll go to.
Excuse me.
You're right, Ms. Curry. Sorry, you're up next. My apologies.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. What is the maximum capacity that you could serve if you had the students? And what new techniques are you using to recruit students? And recognizing the pandemic, I understand the difficulties it is to get people lined up, but I'm concerned that 7 people doesn't sound very robust to me. So I'm suggesting that maybe there's a better way of recruiting. If there is, maybe someone else can help out with that, but I would like to know those 2 things. What's the capacity and how are you recruiting now? Those are the questions.
Yeah, so initially our goal was 12 for this cohort for the year, partially because we're looking to compensate the young people for participating. We want to be able to compensate them for their time. And the contract only allows for so much compensation for the young people. And so the capacity would be at 12 for now. We're looking for other resources out there and wiggle room within the contract where we can take money away from other spots maybe and bring it into stipends, through budget modification and whatnot. So capacity would be around 12. That's the goal. And we did have other young people apply in the fall. Unfortunately, a few of them contacted me to say that they would be rescinding their application for certain reasons. I'm assuming pandemic / school / life that happens. But yeah.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Is that the capacity for 1 year or is that ongoing? How does it work? Do they graduate? Do they move into another level?
12 per year, with the opportunity for them to come back if they want to continue in a position of kind of leadership to help with the cohort, to help with the curriculum delivery, et cetera. But the goal would be to bring in 12 new youth each year to experience the curriculum.
And your ongoing recruitment is finding new people?
Okay. Cato, I'm not sure if you answered Mrs. Curry's question. What are your current outreach strategies? How are you recruiting people?
Yeah, so our current outreach strategies are through social media posts and blasts to sharing out our application. We, as Youth Leadership Institute, we have both programmatic specific pages as well as a big page that's shared across because we're a statewide org that blasts information. It also exists on our website. And then EOC as well has almost I think through I don't know if they're calling it an internship. I needed to get clarity on how they're naming it through a program, but through Street Saints funding, they're able to pay transitional age young people to when they're what is the word? But they're able to they're trying to find a system of paying young people when they're doing some of their leadership development work to be speaking to the youth they're working to recruit them, speak about the program and recruit them to be applying.
So when is the end of the program for the 7 people you presently have? And you'll start searching for 12 new ones?
So we work in the same year that TCC, their year that goes from March 1 to April 1 to March 31. Yes. So the end is March 31.
31, and you'll recruit new people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Before I go to Morgan, one quick question. Now that kids are returning back to school in person, are you guys planning to do any in-person recruitment with the kids being back to school?
I think if we are allowed on campus, so pre-pandemic and during, so we weren't allowed on campus or extra clubs weren't allowed on campus. So if we are allowed on campus, we are planning to recruit through the high schools as well.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Morgan. You have the floor.
Yeah, I just had I guess, well, in terms of youth, what is the age bracket? And in the recruitment in Chinatown, I would love to help you search for the youth in Chinatown. I mean, does it have to be a resident, or is it someone that works there, or what's the criteria to be part of the youth that can help represent Chinatown?
So the criteria, the age range that we're working with for this cohort, 14 to 24. That includes in-school youth who are in school, youth who are out of school, but primarily we're recruiting youth who live in the project area or go to school in the project area.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Sabrina. Sabrina?
Yeah, Morgan actually covered part of my question. The other part I know this is a dual grant partnership with Street Saints, just wondering why they were not on the call today. And I would have loved to have heard from them and get their perspective as well.
Okay.
I think we do have EOC Street Saints staff on the call. I'm not sure if they were on the panel or not.
No, they were not listed as a presenter, but if they want to raise their hand as an attendee, we can have them speak up.
Sandra, you're up next.
Courtney, I just thought maybe it might be useful to make a distinction here that this particular project is one of the contractors to the Transform Fresno effort. It's not one of the projects that's funded, right? So, I mean, I know the money is coming from the same pot, but these were selected through an interview process, right? So I think that's an important distinction. So we're not getting that muddied here.
Right. Thank you, Sandra, for bringing that up. So the Youth Leadership Development Program is part of our community engagement plan. And they are, you're right, they are a hired consultant or hired team that will be delivering the leadership development curriculum. And we did have a competitive recruitment of which YLI and Fresno EOC as a team were awarded that contract. So yeah, thank you for that clarification.
And it's a time limited contract. So they were given resources for a certain time frame with the hope that it would, get some traction and get funding beyond the funded portion of the contract.
That's correct. They are on the same timeline as all of the TCC projects, but the hope is to kind of get their feet situated and expand on that program even further outside of the TCC funding.
And also just to speak quickly to Sabrina's point, if that's all right. So Youth Leadership Institute and EOC working together on this. The partners that I work with EOC are also, through Street Saints, are also responsible, I think, for 2 or 3 other like TCC based things. So they're like constantly having to like either serve as a panelist or like pop in and out of these meetings. So we share like TCC like meeting responsibilities a lot. So this was just like one of those times where I was like, oh, like we'll take this one, you'll take that one kind of thing. But on the next meeting, I'll make sure that at least one person from EOC and one person from YLI is able to represent. Thank you for uplifting that.
You're doing a divide and conquer in the world of COVID, so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
all right.
Thank you for the update.
It looks like we don't have any more questions for our folks here, so we will move on to the next item. Courtney, you have the floor.
Yeah, so for our last project highlight, we're going to be hearing from the members of project number 7, the Clean Shared Mobility Network. So I will go ahead and give you guys the floor and promote some of your folks so they can speak. So Tara, if you'd like to take over. while I
Thank
do
you,
that.
Courtney. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Lynn Gray, Chief Executive Officer of the Fresno Metro, Black Chamber of Commerce and Chamber Foundation. Here with me tonight are members of the Clean Shared Mobility Network team, including Troy Hightower, our project manager, Mary Ferguson with the Shared Use Mobility Center, providing industry best practices and technical assistance, as well as Keisha Thomas, our new community engagement consultant. We have prepared a slide deck for tonight's presentation, and Mary should have presenter rights. Mary, let me know when you're ready. I'm ready when you are.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I just got added on and there was a little bit of a delay there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can get started, Tara. Give me one moment here.
Great. So while you're bringing that up, I just will remind everyone that I'm providing an update tonight on the Clean Shared Mobility Network, which is project number 19 in the first community approved package. And later our project number was changed. It's now referred to as project number 7. Fresno Metro Black Chamber Foundation is the lead partner for this project, and it's our desire to do everything possible to serve our community in delivering this project. And we hope to create a resource that we already know the community needs and definitely deserves. Next slide, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Quick overview of our timeline to date for the project. Obviously 2018, the grant was approved like all of the other projects. Master contract between SGC and the city approved in April 2019. November 2019, our contract with the city of Fresno was approved in 2 parts, agreement A and B. December 2020, we were approved to advance to agreement B, which is the bulk of our project. Next slide. On this slide right here is the project breakdown by task. And though the tasks are listed in sequential order as they are in the project work plan, it's important to note that the tasks are not necessarily executed in the same order in which they are written. One of the reasons why this is called a network is because the network is created by integrated parts to create the whole community solution, which is to provide low and in some cases no cost services for EV car sharing, which is a program for us to check out cars on an hourly basis, volunteer driver program providing electric vehicle rides to underserved residents, electric van pools for accessing employment centers and health centers, electric bike share program for checking out bikes hourly, and a mobility hub customer service counter, which will provide a physical location for engaging with the project. The vast majority of the tasks in the project represented here, with a few small exceptions, which we'll get to in just a moment. Next slide. I want to take a real quick look at what's been completed to date, tasks 1 and 2, which include the deliverables for guidelines and policies, which we have already written. Those have been done. Currently in progress are tasks 3 and 4. Though we have completed Fresno Housing Authority project sites, allowing for charging site construction at 5 total sites to date. The remaining community locations will be selected with the input of the community in the community engagement process that is to come. The remaining tasks on this slide under upcoming are in the planning stages now. We're very close to completion of the bike the initial report for the bike share, which is the part of task 5. And we have several of the items for task 8 started as, or excuse me, yes, task 8 started as well. Next slide. Here are a few of the guidelines and the policies that we've developed to date. Included are the long-term operations and maintenance plan, methodology for selecting charging and parking sites, and a community benefits policy. Now, the community benefit policy was not a requirement of SGC or the city. As we started the subcontracting process, we wanted to make sure that employment opportunities were made available to our community, not just the benefits of the network, but the financial benefits as well. And so we asked each of the subcontractors to agree to a community benefit agreement that states that the jobs resulting from the CSMN project would be offered to local residents first. And again, we want our local community to not only receive the benefits of the network, but to also receive directly the benefits of the economic opportunities that are resultant from this. And we had 100% agreement across the board. All of the subcontractors agreed to the benefit agreement. Next slide. We also added another subcontractor to the project that was not in the original plan. And we felt we needed to do that to ensure that there was adequate community engagement and outreach across the project. So Keisha Thomas recently joined our project team. Many of you already know her for her work at Fresno Career Development Institute. She's a lifelong Fresno resident and very active in the community, including serving as a trustee for Fresno Unified School District. She's a volunteer, a youth advocate, and a fierce representative of some of our community's most vulnerable residents, including those living without adequate shelter. So please welcome Keisha Thomas as she speaks for a few moments about community involvement in our project. Keisha, it's all yours.
Thank you, Tara. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you for that. Next slide, please. When we talk about community involvement, these are all the questions that people in our community have asked us over and over again. What is the new thing you're bringing to our community? Who says we need it? Who did you speak to? Where did they come from? They always want to know where we came from when we come into our city and we do things. So, and they also want to know, how will it help our city? And what community partners did we engage with? So we want to make sure that we answer all those questions and that we are 100% being equitable and that we're being transparent. So transparency is huge. Next slide, please. So why is the community involvement important? Deepening and expanding public engagement has increased globally. The importance of community engagement has become pivotal for well-functioning community projects. Community engagement not only is desirable, but necessary and viable, as it is likely to lead to more equitable, sustainable public decisions and improve the livability of our local communities. Community engagement is important for individuals, for the public organizations, and for the government alike. When we think about community engagement, the best way to think of it is when we go into somebody's community, it's like going into their home. That's where we live, that's where we reside. And we want to make sure that people in our community are a wholehearted part of the processes that we're taking to step and move forward. So with that being said, thank you, Tara, and thank you all.
Thank you, Keisha. So I mentioned a few moments ago that the Fresno Housing Authority sites had chargers installed as part of tasks 3 and 4. Here are a couple of photos of the installation of those chargers, and all of these installations were done by a local contractor. And you can go to the next slide. And next slide. And so what's next? Keisha will be reaching out to members of the community to talk about how best to interact with the network and to determine how the resources on the project can be used by the community. These activities will go beyond informational campaigns and actually solicit input from community members. We need to talk about usage patterns, discover any gaps that exist in service, and document any changes that need to occur in the project since the last survey was done. This will also provide us an opportunity to adjust the planned project for COVID-19 impacts and make sure that we kick off the community engagement process and translate all of those inputs into the other remaining tasks on the project. Next slide. So this is right now the list of team members and their task numbers as the tasks are listed in our work plan. And for those of you that don't know me well, a few of the reasons why we went after this project and I'm the right person to lead this project is my 25 years of experience managing complex technical projects like this one, 10 years experience supporting the largest US owned people moving transportation company here in the United States with more than 80 municipal contracts, and small business education and management experience that I think has prepared me very well for this project. Next slide. Also, our project manager, Troy Hightower, has many years, 30 years to be exact, experience working as a project manager. Another reason why he's the right person to be project managing here. He was a regional transportation planner, worked closely with Fresno COG and worked for Kern COG, and has done a lot of work across community engagement transportation projects, and has done a bulk of his work in disadvantaged communities. He has additional experience working on 2 other Strategic Growth Council funded projects and is very well prepared to do this. So at this time, I want to pass the presentation to Mary Ferguson with Shared Youth Mobility Center to present on our project partners.
Thank you so much, Tara. Yes, so I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail on all the project partners involved in CSMN, including the organization I work for, which is the Shared Use Mobility Center, also known as SUMC for short. We're a transportation nonprofit. We're dedicated to advancing shared transportation services such as bike share, electric vehicle car share, ride sharing, etc., and to enhance mobility and quality of life for everybody. SUMC provides work and expertise in a variety of ways, including technical assistance to local and state governments, research analysis of growth of shared mobility.
Hey, Mary, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I want to allow for a lot of time for questions from the panel and the public. Can you skip the, kind of resume of the partners and just speak directly to what their role is in this project?
Absolutely, no worries. I could do that. Yeah, so for this particular project, we serve as a project's primary technical advisor on assistance with project management and implementation of the tasks. And that also includes identifying sites for electric vehicle charging and development of a web platform that will integrate all of the different transportation modes that have been mentioned. and assistance with community stakeholder engagement. The next partner is the Early Readers Preschool. There is going to be a site at the Clean Energy Park and Play area, which will provide access to a solar-powered vehicle charging station for low-income neighbors, promoting the use of low to zero emission vehicles. And further benefits include reducing greenhouse gas emissions through the use of electric vehicles and providing low to no cost transportation for West Fresno residents and the preschool's children while creating employment training opportunities. The solar powered lot will be available to residents and visitors of West Fresno, Chinatown, and downtown. The next partner is Green Commuter. Their role in this project is going to be deploying 34 vehicles for electric vehicle car share with below market rates for lower income members. Also 8 vans for electric vehicle van pool to employment centers and electric vehicle charging infrastructure as well. The next partner is the Latino Environmental Advancement Project, also known as LEAP. They will provide a ride sharing service for the CSMM project. The rides will be coordinated to maximize mileage and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and facilitating community socioeconomic health and educational advancement. And the last partner is the Shared Mobility Inc., also known as SMI. They have been contracted to plan and implement the shared bicycle component of the CSMM project. So that's just a little more information about everyone that's involved in the project. And I'll pass it back over to Tara.
Thank you, Mary. And we could go off a screen share so that we could interact, I think, on for Q&A.
Does that conclude your presentation, CEO?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. I'm going to start off with the public. Anybody in the public wishing to address any questions to the partner? I see Matthew. Matthew, you have the floor.
Thank you so much there. Just a quick question. First of all, to Ms. Keisha Thomas, welcome to the partnership there. I'm glad to see someone with such a long-standing presence in our community take an active role in this program. You hit on some very good points that the community has been asking. One that was left out, and it was there's a lot of dates that have been thrown around in there, but when do we think the community will actually be able to take part in these services? When will they be able to utilize a bicycle? When will they be able to get an electric vehicle? When will they be able to utilize all of that energy that's going to be harvested from solar at these different sites?
Thank you, Mr. Gilliam, for the question. In our first community engagement, it's coming up pretty quick. We will make sure that we post it. But to say the least, we will make sure we invite everybody, and there will be a timeline.
So Mrs. Thomas, do we not have a timeline yet for when these services will begin?
We do have some. Tara, can you give them the timeline, please? I don't have it in front of me.
So the overall project timeline, we have 5 years to do 3 years worth of work. We were allowed to move to Agreement B in December of 2020. So we have just entered the phase to finish tasks 3 and 4. And we will begin the community engagement process shortly to finalize tasks 3 and 4. The chargers that have already been installed are turned up and can be used, but the network that is to take advantage of that, the cars have not yet been procured, and the park and ride station has not been built. That is underway.
Okay,
and should be completed soon.
So if I understand correctly, at this point, the only thing that's operational are the chargers that anybody can use at this point, but the rest of the components of the program are not operational yet. When do you believe you'll have a date for when the rideshare, the van pool, the bikes will be operational? Is that ready yet?
Good evening. This is Troy Hightower. I might be able to help answer that question, if I may. Under task 8, which was one of the tasks listed on the slides, which is operations, that's the early start for that is October of 2021, and that will run through December of 2023. And again, that was on one of the slides that listed all of the tasks and the time frame for the operations. That same slide has the time frame for all of the other tasks.
Perfect. And for the record to the public, that presentation will be posted on our website, Transform Fresno, so people can go back there and look at the specific timeline. But thank you for pointing that out, that it's in the presentation. Mr. Gillian, any other questions before I go to the next speaker? I don't think so. So we'll go to Nora. You have the floor.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I just quickly would like to not know everything, but what are the basic areas of qualification of where you decide where you're going to put the charging stations at?
I can help answer that. Yes. Yeah, this is Mary here. So yeah, so we'll be looking, it'll be a combination of reviewing the project area to see where some heavily used transportation corridors are, along with community outreach to find out people's origin and destination points. To see where people live, where people are working, and what makes the most sense for the project. So it's going to be a combination of the two approaches.
And about how many more charging stations are you planning to install?
So there's going to be a total of 36 charging stations.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we will most likely exceed that number of 36.
Yes.
All right, let me come now to the panel. Any questions from the panel members or the oversight committee? Better description. I see Amy, you're up first. You're on mute, Amy. There you go.
Thank you. No, if I could just try and clarify, and I do realize that the operations runs for about a 2-year period, but perhaps if we could just begin and recognizing that, you know, everything is subject to change, but it would be helpful to get a sense, for example, is it more likely perhaps that the bikes might, when we might begin to start seeing things on the road, as they say, recognizing it's going to be a build-up, or you know, you've got to get the web platform together. Hopefully we're going to adopt something that some other big city like Buffalo has already done, so that we're not starting from scratch. But you know, it's just helpful sometime for folks to, you know, we might begin seeing some cars on the road at the beginning of 2022, perhaps, and it's going to build up, you know, because 2 years is a long time frame. So I'm just hoping for a little more clarity.
Totally understood, Amy. We have just finished the third draft of the bike recommendation plan. And so we're very close to having the strategy for the bikes done. And we actually have a plan to purchase bikes, and we have some bikes that we may actually be able to retrofit from a very generous donor and extend the number of assets that we will have. So we're very close to being able to announce a date, and I'm sure Troy can remind us the exact date that it is on the project plan. But I also want to point out that we actually took delivery of our first 3 electric vehicles. And because of the delays that we had on the project, we had to return them. So we hope that we will be in a position to do that, to take delivery of some fleet vehicles very soon. But we right now, as Troy said, we're looking at October before we are ready to fully engage. And it is very likely that the bike share component will precede the electric vehicles.
If I could add one more thing to what Tara mentioned, as part of the rolling out of the bike program, we're planning to work with Bike Save Fresno, which is an additional TCC project, and do actual public events where people can come and learn about the bikes. And that will be one of the early stages of rolling out the project. That could happen as early as this fall.
Yeah, really, really good point, Troy. We picked up a synergy with another partner because of their ability to advance their project, and actually realized it was really good for us to come together. They wanted to do more with their project, and we wanted to add some elements to ours. So the delay, though difficult, we managed to pick up a synergy that we think will actually end up being very good for the community.
Any other questions from the panel? All right, seeing none, I have a few questions. Bike share you referenced, just cautionary tale. The city had a bike share program a few years ago, and most of the bikes ended up in the canals and, in encampments and in places. So I think our current ordinance still makes the quote unquote provider of the bikes responsible if they end up in the canal. I think we treat them like shopping carts, where we require the store to go collect their shopping carts across the city. So just think through some of the implications of putting bikes out that may end up somewhere that the city's going to want to go back to the person or the entity that put out the bikes. So just food for thought.
So regarding that, we should really address that. Councilmember Arias, we worked with Jim Shad at the city as the mobility device ordinance was being created a couple years back. And it's our understanding that the limits were placed on the scooters, not the bicycles. And so we actually got an exemption for the bicycles, and we are not deploying scooters for that exact reason.
And in your plan, if the bicycles end up in the canals, do you have a process for maintaining the bikes, checking up on the bikes, inventorying the bikes? Do you have that in your plan?
We do have inventorying the bikes, tracking the bikes. The bikes will have telematics on them. And so the geofencing and the geo-tracking of them will be built in. We will be able to know where they are. But if somebody takes the bike and, throws it in a river, we can't stop that from happening.
Yep. But it's good to know that you're tracking them. So you can manage your inventory and where it's located at. My second question is your chargers, your hybrid charging stations. I know I've asked this before. Have you figured out what your replacement plan is when those chargers get damaged? Because again, another cautionary tale, the city of Fresno just installed half a dozen charging stations across the street from the city hall. And within a week, the charging stations were damaged and all the copper was taken. So, and those are the latest charging stations that you can find. So have you guys thought through your plan to repair the charging stations when they're damaged? Is your plan still that the property owner is going to be fully responsible for repairs and replacement?
contractor that has been installing the chargers is working on a maintenance plan right now, and it's actually training a repair workforce. They've been through their first set of training classes 2 weeks ago. And so we're thinking that we will most likely be deploying their services for the maintenance of the network.
Got it. And is that for that 5-year contract period?
So we have a 5-year window and a 3-year performance period. And so it is for the 3-year performance period.
Perfectly. And then my last question is, I know you guys are working out your, platform that you're going to use to utilize these charging stations. What company have you identified or secured to, I know the last time we discussed, you guys were referencing that you're going to build your own platform, your own system versus buying something out in the market. Have you decided what platform you're using and who's your vendor?
So the chargers themselves, our platform that we use will be focused on signing up users and then interfacing with the assets that are on the network. And the chargers are considered an asset on the network. And to date, we are looking at building interfaces or buying interfaces so that we can interact with multiple charger networks.
Makes sense. So if I go on my phone, for layman's terms, if I go on my phone and I want to use your charger versus a city charger, your system is going to allow me to pick anyone that's near me to charge?
So for the long-term plan, that is the idea, but let us not lose sight of the fact that this is a community asset built for our community. And so the intent is with our network is that it's community first. Our community members will join the network and then they will have an access card that allows them to access all of the assets in the network. So it really is kind of designed to be a closed network first. For the community. And then when we transition to long-term past the project period, then we will need to take those things into consideration. And I believe Troy had a comment. I think I heard him step up to say something. Troy, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, just quickly, a couple of things. One of the reasons we're just designing our own platform is so that it could integrate all the operators that we're using and the different modes. And in addition to what Tara touched on is we want the system to be able to allow access for what's been called the unbankable people or people that may not have access to the internet or smartphones.
Got it. And Troy, who's your vendor designing your platform?
We're working with one of our subcontractors, Sumsy is one of them, to help develop the platform. Not only develop the platform for access, but as well as tracking data on the usage and miles so that we can project the greenhouse gases that our system is reducing.
So Tara, can you do me a favor? And this is for my personal interest. Can you send me the vendors that you're using? I think if it's Sumsy or whoever else, because as a city, we're starting to set up charging stations. So I want to be able to get some references to vendors that have worked locally and have some experiences with our local charging stations. So if you can just forward that to us, that would be great.
Just so I'm clear, you want the charger makes and models, the charger systems?
No, I'm talking about the people who are creating your software to integrate with your charging stations.
Okay, the software vendor.
Correct.
Okay, all right, okay, that's not finalized yet. So
whenever you finalize it, whoever you finalize it with, because from my perspective, TCC is going to give us that opportunity to figure out what we can learn from, these charging stations that we set up across the city. Because as a city, we're probably going to try and set some up at parks, because we're going to do solar at parks, and we need to start trying to identify vendors that have figured out the kinks to communities that are underserved and are hard to serve.
Understood.
Thank you. Any other questions from the panel or the public? All right, I think we're good then. Thank you, Mrs. Gray, and to your team for the presentation, and to the panel for your thoughtful questions. Courtney, what's up next?
So again, I want to thank everybody for, that presented tonight. As a reminder to all the folks listening, to go to the Transform Fresno website to check out all the project updates from all of the different projects to learn more about them. So before we adjourn the meeting, I guess we'll go out to the public and ask if anyone would like to take an opportunity to speak. Raise your hand. That is our last agenda item.
All right, and just to leave you with, here's our website. Thank you to those who created it. Looks good, and I appreciate that. We keep on putting updates on there on other projects. So again, all the presentations that were shared today with the Oversight Committee will be uploaded here. So in case you miss anything, you can always go back and track some of the updates that we've had. Thank you again, and thank you all for joining us and spending dinner time with the residents and the panel members and partners of the TCC work in Fresno.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Miguel.